And I think the biggest issue I had initially was translating the military techniques and procedures into expedition procedures. So things like, I don't now put my stove away every night because I'm not going to get bumped in the middle of the night, or I don't have to pack my tent away fully. I can be efficient with it by just folding a couple of the poles over, rolling it up, and then shoving it in a ski bag and having it on top of my pole. It's things like that where it's not laziness, it's just efficiencies in a different manner.
Sam, how are you, brother?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Yes, I have to say I was very excited when somebody said, Chris, you want to get this guy on your podcast. Thank you to that person on Twitter. Sorry, your name escapes me. And I took a look, and it was an article. I think it was done in one of the local papers. And when it comes to anything Antarctica, I'm all ears. Having expeditioned to the continent myself for a scuba diving trip, and just getting sucked into just the amazing everything about the place, the geography, the history of exploration, Shackleton's story, etc., etc. So when I saw yours, the first thing that piqued my interest is it said the first crossing of Antarctica, and I was a bit bamboozled.
I'm not sure which paper that was then, because I'm not claiming to be the first crossing. I'm intrigued about that. But no, so in terms of ski crossing,
so that's just
I've double checked my website then to make sure I haven't claimed something. No, so it's the furthest ski crossing. So the way we're just chatting about it before we started recording is there's a lot of nuance around the language in Antarctica because of Lou Rudd and Colin O'Brady's crossing. They brought in a classification system called Polar Expedition Classification System. So they do North, South Pole, and Greenland, Svalbard, and sort of all the waters around it. If you're in the polar regions, you go through this organization to get your expedition classified, especially if you're looking for world records and things like that. So what mine is officially titled as is the furthest, so in terms of distance, ski unsupported solo crossing of Antarctica. So like you said, Lou Rudd and Colin O'Brady did a ski crossing a few years ago. Theirs was about 1,450 kilometers. Mine's going to be around about 2,000. And then Ranfines, clearly using tractors. That's not a ski crossing. So that's a different category. And the same with people like Borg Ousland, who has crossed the Antarctica but using a kite as assistance or supported. So I am just skiing with no resupply or anything like that. So just skiing across on my Todd. Again, people have done it in pairs and teams, but not a soloist.
Yeah, so this will be the first officially recognized crossing should you succeed.
According to the new classification system, so Lou and Colin's route now wouldn't be classified as unsupported because they use the spot road. So that's the spot road is an ice blasted road and graded, so it gets rid of all the lumps and bumps and has markers every few hundred meters to allow resupply in winter to the research station on the South Pole from one of the other research stations on the coast. So nowadays that wouldn't be counted as an unsupported expedition, and they're not going to, they've got grandfather rights. They're not going to go back in time and declassify it because there weren't any conditions for them to go and work off initially. So it wouldn't be fair to them to retrospectively declassify anything they did.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just going to say it again. I'm not trying to be political here.
No, it's absolutely fine.
Just I don't care about all the minutiae of that sort of stuff.
Get in hot water with the language, and I've had a few people going, "Oh, you can't use that word because unassisted means like gravity." And it's like, okay, I get gravity, and there's wind might assist you. It's like, okay, fine, but wind can also unassist you, and gravity, you have to go uphill to then go downhill, don't you? So it doesn't really make sense. But you have to play the game, I suppose, and this is part of it.
It was ITV .com, I believe, that you were quoted in, and the headline, just for your interest, former Royal Marine from Torbay to attempt world's first solo crossing of the Antarctic. That was why I was confused.
That's probably because they should have hung around for the entire interview rather than squeezing in their little section beforehand and then not going off the press brief, clearly. But yeah, interesting.
Yes.
I just found it now.
So just right off the bat, are you familiar with the flat Earth theory?
Oh yeah, no. Since Daily Mail put an article out, I have not been inundated, but I have been questioned by a few people and added by quite a few flat earthers.
Because for people listening that wonder where I'm going with this, the notion is that that Antarctica is an ice wall that fringes this flat plane, and I say no, it's not an ice wall. It's a continent. I'm absolutely fascinated from an explorer's point of view. How do you counterfact that with what you're about to do? Certain group would say you're going to fall off the side of the planet.
I suppose that the argument would be that I'm a government agent to make the people believe that the Earth is flat, but I'm definitely not. And I think individuals that think that the governments around the world and the military have that level of capability seriously overestimate the ability of these organisations. Having just left the Marines after 13 years, is the organisation's not that cohesive to be able to uphold a lie that big. But it's interesting. I'd never really thought about it until a few weeks ago when someone questioned me and started quoting a few facts that were nearly 300 years old. So I suppose it's just using science that fits their narrative, and there's a lot of science out there. And, read around the subject and don't just go down the rabbit hole that you're on, and maybe read some counter arguments to understand what the other side is saying. I've read a few things, and to me that I find quite a few flaws in the proof that they're using, in terms of using Captain Cook from the late 1700s as proof, and a bloke who sailed to Antarctica in the early 1900s. I mean, it's coming up 100, if not 300 years old, some of this evidence they're using, and actually there's a hell of a lot of evidence out there, and the fact that I'm about to go there to show that it's not a conspiracy to keep people off. I mean, you can literally go to the FCDO in the UK if you're from the UK to get a permit to go down there, or speak to any of the companies, private companies as well, that run expeditions down there, whether that's to the South Pole or walking small areas around it, or sailing down there, or scuba diving, or whatever you want to do.
It's a vast continent, Sam, isn't it? It's the notion that you'd see another person down there, and unless you were near a research station, is probably a bit far-fetched.
Yeah, it's as big as mainland Europe and the UK combined, including a lot of the seas. Bigger than Australia. The continental United States fits inside of it. I mean, it's a huge place with about 30,000 people there in the summer. So, like you said, the likelihood of you bumping into someone, let alone a task force to stop you from landing there, is minimal. There might be some penguins there, but then that's another conspiracy theory, isn't it?
Moving on.
Move on.
Do you want to just give us a very brief rundown, some of your time in the Corps, what you got up to, what rank you were?
So I joined the young officers batch in 2010. Did 15 months down at Lympstone, which is where you do with the commando training. Passed out, did my troop commander. Then in 2013, did sort of the latter end of Herrick, 17 and most of Herrick 18, sort of overlapped. I was attached to the BRF, doing the helicopter landing site. So actually sort of the best of both worlds. I got a bit of bastion life, so the joys of a coffee shop, but then out patrolling pretty much every other day, doing helicopter landings, and then taking off at the end of the day, or end of 2 days. Really enjoyable tour, really busy tour. Came back, continued, spent my first winter in Norway, and then my second winter in Norway, which is where this sort of generated from. Joined 2-9 Commando not too long after that. Trained to control fast air, so it's called JTACing now, but it used to be called FAC or FACing, and deployed to Iraq as a JTAC against ISIS, which was a really interesting tour. And then came back from that. What else have I done? I've been all over the shop, really. I've not really stayed in one place. Nice jack of all trades, which has been really good, and a couple of staff jobs. And now I'm here. So staff jobs didn't didn't suit me and my outdoorsy nature, and wanted to do something physical and mental rather than purely cognitive behind a desk. It's not my idea of a good time.
So, talking to someone that's also Arctic warfare trained, how much of an advancement from, say, the skills that somebody like myself would have, or yourself from the Corps, is it to be considering crossing a continent, especially one known for, is it huge crevasses and the like?
Not huge. Well, it depends where you go. Obviously, there's going to be huge crevasses depending on your route, but the route I've got as a soloist, I've spoken to the team, help you advise with the route, and I've tried to steer away from crevasses. There's not much you can do as a soloist if you do go down one. There's not much you can do to then get back out. So in terms of training, it's I suppose Livingston sets you up well. In general, it gives you applied resilience is something that I'm quite keen to push towards people. You can talk about resilience and read books about resilience and have skills for resilience, but actually until you put yourself in a situation which is usually outside your comfort zone, you can't then gain the experience of resilience. So CTC really pushes you pretty much every day to that level. So that provides a good level, and it just gives you a good set of and base of routines and knowledge that you get up in the morning, you do a certain task, and then you get on with your day, and then you finish, and then you go to bed and sleep, and that's just hard bootneck life. And in terms of the Norway stuff, the skiing technique is a little bit different because you don't have a whopping great big bergen on going through trees and falling over every 15 minutes. And I think the biggest issue I had initially was translating the military techniques and procedures into expedition procedures. So things like, I don't now put my stove away every night because I'm not going to get bumped in the middle of the night, or I don't have to pack my tent away fully. I can be efficient with it by just folding a couple of the poles over, rolling it up, and then shoving it in a ski bag and having it on top of my pole. It's things like that where it's not laziness, it's just efficiencies in a different manner. But things like routines of, I'll ski for 90 minutes and then have a break to have something to eat and something to drink, that's really drilled into you. And there's definitely a difference between adventurers who do this sort of stuff who are self-taught from a civilian background and adventurers who've got even a slight military background. Is they understand sort of going that extra mile, and being lazy isn't helpful. So you need to eat as soon as you get in. Don't just sit down, take your boots off and get in your sleeping bag because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, because you're not going to feel as good the next day, and you just feel worse and worse. So it gives you a great grounding, but it's quite a bit of differences between the military world of teaching and the expedition world.
And what was your kind of, right, I'm going to do this moment, and why did you even decide to on Antarctica?
So when COVID was bubbling away in the background, I left for an exercise in Brunei in late January, when 2020, when COVID was 10th on the news and nothing was really known about it. Disappeared off, no phone signal, no Wi-Fi or anything. So we missed the whole build up, and then we got pulled off the exercise out the jungle. Got told, right, Brunei shutting its borders tomorrow, we're flying back in the morning. And we got back on a Saturday. UK went to lockdown on the Monday. So I'd been from a really, really, really busy, quite austere environment to then sitting on my sofa watching Netflix pretty much all day, and then going out with the dog for my hour's exercise. So after about 2 weeks of that, my mind was still racing. So I needed something to plan. I'd always really only had professional goals. Being ex-military, you know what it's like. You got the next course coming up or the next deployment coming up. So that's your goal and that's your focus for it. So I wanted something for me. So I'm not a runner, I'm not a climber, I'm not a particularly good kayaker or anything like that. So I was looking around, and then linking back to Norway, that's where the idea came from, is I'll do something cold weather. So Antarctica sort of piqued my interest a little bit more than the Northern Hemisphere, having been to Norway quite a few times. So that's where the idea came from. And then went back to work, and then it was the November lockdown of 2020 that was like, okay, this idea is going to turn into a project. And being longer term, it's been really good in terms of engaging me mentally and physically. So the planning of it, I've got spreadsheets for days on my laptop that, planning weights, planning food, planning menus, through to the actual physical sort of endeavor of training for this. It's been a nice balance of everything. I've genuinely really enjoyed it, even though it's been like a second full-time job in the evenings after I finish work.
Have you been down there before?
No, I've never been down to Antarctica, so be first time. So I'm really looking forward to it. To be honest, it should be really good. Again, only having done Norway and Sweden, it's not a million miles apart, but it's significantly different from the Scandex.
Yeah, I've not been to the interior, obviously, but certainly when you visit the peninsula, it's utterly stunning.
Yeah.
Just it's not. I had it in my mind. I don't know. I don't even know what I thought it was. I wasn't even sort of. It's going to sound weird. I didn't know then what I know now. I hadn't read the books on Shackleton, for example, and Scott and Amundsen and this kind of stuff. And I wasn't, I can't say like I'm massively into wildlife, although, we got to appreciate that sort of thing. But once you get down there and you see it, it's just like, oh my gosh, now I know, now, now I know why I'm here. It's utterly stunning, utterly stunning. So you see, you see icebergs the size of like counties,
like countries, aren't they? Yeah,
yeah, just floating by, and this the wild, like I say, the wildlife and the sense of the explorers that have gone before you, and there's expedition huts down there you can go in that are just like they were when they were left. I don't know, probably 80 years ago or something. But yes, so how much money does a trip like this cost, and how have you raised it?
So it depends on what you're trying to do. So it's all down to routes you're taking and sort of team size and things like that. And again, like the flipping pound dropped significantly from when I had the money raised to when I finally got the invoice. So that that costs an eye-watering amount more. So my trip's around about $200,000, which is pretty pricey, but that's because I'm so remote in terms of where my pickup point is. So when you get picked up by the plane, if I could fill the plane, it would still cost the same amount for the flight. It's just for me, no one else is coming with me, so I'm not able to. And then in terms of financing, quite a lot's been sponsorship, and then quite a lot's been sort of personal debt and personal financing. So saving for a few years, as well as taking a few loans as well. So a lot of speaking to a few people and then reading around a few other expeditions is people who seem to come across the finance quite easily maybe don't have the best results. So I think it's been quite useful that it's been probably the hardest part of the whole thing is trying to raise the cash to get this through. Obviously we live in difficult financial times anyway, and it's probably only going to get worse. So it's been difficult to get people to commit without having an expedition behind me first. Whereas a lot of the other people who seemingly get the money quite easily is down to them either having like a bit of a background in the expeditioning world, whereas obviously more my background's through military hardship, which some people don't necessarily understand as a a reasonable background in comparison to some civvy-led expeditions that people have done.
Yes, here. So 2,000 miles. What
kilometers? Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, kilometers.
Hopefully it's not miles. It's not. I've definitely got my maths wrong.
It might be if you. What do they say about an officer with a compass?
No, don't be like
that. Oh, what was I going to say? Yes. So, what, Sam? What training have you done?
So, in terms of
or
cold
preparation, I suppose.
Better, yeah. So like I said, I was a bit. You get a few people who go from zero to hero in about 5 years. And I suppose my initial adventure background started when I was a teenager. I live in Devon, so not too far from Dartmoor. So I was out there probably every other weekend camping and things like that. So weirdly, that I learned to read a compass in my teens and learned how to put up a tent in my teens and learned how to cook rations in my teens. So that sort of gave me a head start when I joined the Corps, for example. And then the Royal Marines gave me another head start in terms of the polar world, giving me 6 months in Norway before I even thought of doing something like this. So understand the environment gave me a really good sort of bumper compared to some of the other people who start fresh. So in terms of training, like I said, the first cold weather winter I did training for this specifically, I looked to make sure I could do the distances I'd require. So I was doing between 25 and 30k a day for 3 and a bit weeks to make sure I was physically capable of doing it, sort of working things out as I went along. And I was using passage kits, passage planks, plus his boots. They're the newer skis, so they're not the old wooden ones. They were the newer military ones. Using big heavy tents, and you know, if you can train in the dark when it's colder in your tent at night, it surely makes it easier when you go down to Antarctica and it's warmer in your tent because it's 24-hour daylight, so your tent warms up quite nicely. And then this winter, I sort of left the phys side, didn't focus on distance, and really focused on getting techniques and routines together. So I really focused on skiing technique. You look at some of the guys who have done some of the records down there, and magically they're always from northern Canada or the Nordics, where they're born with skis on. So there's a reason for that. It's because their technique's really good. So I focus on getting my technique pinned down, as well as things like routines of putting the tent up. So I probably, in the space of a week and a half, put my tent up about 50, 60 times. Every time I stopped, I'd get the tent out and have a go at putting it up in a different way. And then once I worked out a way, I'd then fiddle with that way and, finesse it to a point that I get really comfortable with it. So I could probably get my tent up in less than 5 minutes now, even in bad weather. Just to, saves you 10 minutes, saves you getting cold, saves you using extra calories, saves the grumpiness, saves you losing pegs. Make sure I can do it, and just repetition over that. And even things like cooking is working out the perfect amount of snow to melt down into water to then not use so much fuel later on. So instead of filling it, as you know at home when you put the kettle on, you don't fill it full to make 1 cup of tea. You put enough in for a cup of water. So it's fiddling with things like that and working out stoves, and just make sure I was as efficient as possible. So that's sort of the technical side and the cold weather side. And then physically, it's been sort of pushing the distances and times in terms of training and make sure that I'm as physically fit as possible. I mean, I'm relatively young compared to a lot of people who go down there to do these sort of things. I'm 34. As you look at people like Lou, who's in his mid 40s when he did this, and age is a factor, but not a huge one. It's that sort of mental knowledge as well. So having a mix of the two hopefully will work really well for me in my favor. So that's been the sort of main physical preparation. Then I've been doing an ex-bootneck actually, from a company called Resilience Development Company, approached me about doing some resilience training. And initially I was like, nah, come on, mate. You know as much as anyone. I've been in the Corps for 13 years. I don't need resilience training. Actually, the skills are really good. They fit pretty much any circumstance, and they deliver them to corporates and things like that. And actually, they're really small individual skills that help you in the long run. So one of the skills that always sticks in my mind is dropping the peanut. So what they mean by that is if you make a small mistake, people generally ruminate over that mistake, and builds up, destroys your morale and makes you lose focus. Whereas they're like, if you lose a peg or you spill your dinner down yourself, you can't help it. It's happened. It's not going to affect you in the long run. So just drop it and leave it behind, park it there. And actually, that's something that I think everyone ends up not really doing, is they let it fester in their mind and distracts them from what they're actually aiming to achieve or what they've got going on.
Yes, it's a bit like mindfulness, isn't it? Live in the present, and the past no longer exists, no matter how much we sometimes think it does. And what is the weight of the polk?
So in terms of the biggest thing I've got in my polk weight wise is food. It's just under 1.5 kilos a day. So 75 to 80 days, I think it's about 110 kilos all up. And then with equipment, fuel, and then the polk itself, it's all in. I think my magic number is 165 kilos. So I'm just trying to get it to that to start with. So what's that, 25, 26 stone. It's a hefty weight, but again, it's nice to know that after 10 days, I'll be 15 kilos lighter, which would be good. So it goes down every day, which is a nice little morale booster as I eat all my dinner, make sure I finish my tea each night.
You, Sam, if I don't mind me saying so, you're not carrying a few pounds, are you? Is that going to be an issue? Because I saw photos of Lou when he got back, and he was sort of skeletal.
Yeah, so it's a weird one. I'm carrying. Went up to Leeds Beckett University about 2 months ago and had a DEXA scan. So they work out your sort of all sorts of bodily measurements, and that's from body fat through to bone density via muscle mass and stuff. So 2 months ago, I was about 23% body fat. So I've probably put on 2 or 3 kilos since then. Been overeating to try and get it down. So there's a fine line, I suppose, of carrying extra body weight to be fat enough to have extra calories on board and to have that extra insulation, but also not overeating so you lose fitness and you end up sort of carrying too much weight for the sake of it. So the other one I've tried to do is I actually work for one of the nutrition company that started sponsoring me, and one of the first sponsors, Resilient Nutrition. I actually work for them now. So we've devised a menu that means that I should get roughly the right amount of calories in per day. Whereas I know a lot of people in the past, that's why my food parcels are so heavy, is a lot of people in the past have limited what they take down with them based on the weight rather than the calories. And for me, that doesn't really make sense. So if you've got a 70-day expedition and you know you're going to burn 7,000 calories like I do, what's the point of taking 6,000 calories because it weighs less? Like, you're not going to make it to the end because you're not going to have enough energy, or you're going to be absolutely knackered. So I know people, I'm sure Ben won't mind me saying, is he basically ran out of food on 2 of his expeditions because he didn't take enough because he was trying to save weight. So if the company that are looking after me logistically give me 81 days, guess what? I'm taking 81 days worth of food. I'm not going to risk it for the sake of saving, what would that be? Let's say 10 kilos worth of weight. I might as well take up the food and actually finish it properly rather than risk it to save a bit of weight and be a bit lighter. There's no point in my eyes. I'd rather be slower, take the full 81 than try and go quicker but not finish it because I don't have enough food.
Yes, got you. And what is the bulk of your rations, or can you just give an idea of what somebody eats on an expedition like this?
Yes, yeah, so I think it's on the website and on my social media. So it's mainly nut butter. A lot of it is quite high calorie nut butter. So not classic dry roasted peanuts. It's almonds and cashews mixed in with cocoa and added protein and things like that. So in the morning I've got a high protein porridge which I just mix a little bit of water in, and then with that there's one of the products called a emergency survival ration, which is about 1,600 calories in a big pack, which is nut butter and cocoa, and I've just mixed it in because the thing I found with big eating is the volume, whereas this, because it's nut butter, it's not a huge amount of volume, but it makes my breakfast like 1,000 calories. It sort of doubles the calories of it. That's going to be my breakfast, and then I've got some carbohydrate drinks in a flask. So that's another 500 calories. Long gone are the days of Pusser's Screech. It's not pure sugar. This is actually useful calories. So I'm not drinking limers going around. It's nutritionally beneficial limers. We'll leave it at that. And then throughout the day, I've got loads of different snacks. So I found a type of cheese that is hard baked. So it takes all the moisture out of it, which reduces the weight, but actually 100 grams is about 550 calories. So I'm eating 100 grams of dried cheese every day, salami, more nut butters. And then when I finish in the evening, I've got a big dehydrated main meal. Think if you've not eaten them before, like a healthier pot noodle. So that's about 1,500 calories. And all in all, it's just over 7,000 calories a day, mixed in 1.5 kilos, which is, as far as I can see, the lightest anyone's been able to get that amount of calories in them without just drinking olive oil, which was the old school way to get the calories in.
What about this is a personal question I'd want to know. Do you drink? When we were in Norway, it was always wet stock, wasn't it? Tea, coffee. And when I look back, it's no wonder we were dehydrated all the time. And I wonder what the situation is down there.
So like I said, I'm having a carbohydrate drink in one. I'm taking 2 flasks. So one will be filled with hot carbohydrate drink, and then the other one will just be hot water. So I can either make another one later on or water it down, or the idea being that one being plain water means when I get in the evenings, I can start the kettle off with some water in it rather than going straight from snow, because it just takes longer. And then I'm taking 1 kilo of, bear in mind, I've been trying to shave grams off everything. So cutting labels off clothes and, shedding bits and bobs and tailoring loads of items of equipment. I'm taking 1 kilo of coffee down with me, fresh coffee down with me, and my AeroPress to have one every morning as a little morning treat as I get ready for the day. But yeah, I'm not going to be drinking pure tea and coffee.
Yes.
Imagine my teeth afterwards. Yeah. So I'm just taking 1 coffee as a sort of small luxury.
And in terms of your kit, is there anything sort of Gucci that we should know about? Are there any innovations? I've always thought, I chat with Baz Gray about this, that could there not be some way of melting the water before you get to your RV? Some sort of dynamo?
I did look at this. So I spoke to a guy up in Nottingham who designed a poke that was like an all-encased poke with wheels on. So you can take the wheels off. So when it's really deep snow, you take the wheels off, and then when it's good hard packed snow, you can put the wheels on. It means you can sort of drag it along a bit easier. And he talked about dynamos and ways to use solar panel to heat like a water bowser, like you get in the back of BVs, a sort of permanent. And I think it was one of those that the amount of solar output you'd need to do that just wouldn't be plausible. And then dynamos again to melt water beforehand. I think the friction it would create would just slow you down. It'd be quite difficult to do. I have looked at different ways, and it's difficult. But I think there's innovation in some ways, but actually it's probably reached a peak, and there's only so much you can do until someone invents a pulp that floats or hovers or something. But in terms of what I've done, I've tried to. A lot of people use other people's kit lists for these sort of things. So I've tried to steer away from doing that by using different brands. So a lot of people use Hilleberg tents. Nothing wrong with Hilleberg tents; they're great. So I've deliberately tried to use a different brand of tent. So I'm using a House Sport. Same with clothing. I'm using Jotner clothing. They've been kind enough to give me loads of clothing, whereas a lot of people just go with mountain equipment because what everyone else uses. And actually, one of the big things with it is, as with a pair of jeans, not all clothing brands fit you personally. So you need to try things out before you even start. So 75 days on your Todd with a load of clothing that doesn't fit you isn't great. So why would you just borrow someone else's kit list and go off that? So you need to tailor it to yourself. I haven't gone. People edit stoves and things, but I mean they're pretty well made anyway. And the time and effort with a full-time job and a young family to start fiddling around to try and make my stove that extra bit efficient isn't really worth my time, unfortunately. I've had to pick and choose certain things, and like I said, I haven't done anything hugely innovative. I think probably the main thing is the ration pack, which should be the biggest thing. And I suppose that's the one thing people forget about when they're doing this sort of stuff. So they're all about innovating kit and innovating things to make kit better, but actually they forget about the human body. Like without you don't power that kit. So when you forget about the human body, it sort of negates all the gains you've made by adding something to your tent or removing something from your skis. It doesn't really make sense.
What are your luxury items?
So I am, like I said, my kilo of coffee. That's the main one. And then because I'm out there for Christmas, my wife doesn't like Christmas pudding, so I'm taking a small individual Christmas pudding for Christmas Day. And then I was thinking about this. I've gone mildly military, so I've made 10 different meal packs for the whole thing. So I should only have seven versions. So 10 different versions of my meals. So I should only have them each 7 times. So on a 10-day rotating menu. I mean, if you've been on holiday for more than a week, you realize they just rotate the meals around. Nobody complains. So I wasn't going to take huge amounts of luxuries with me. I think I'm going to have 1 duff per week, and I've got a 1 non-porridge breakfast per week as well as a bit of a treat. So what I am going to take with me is a few extra bits and bobs to auction off afterwards to raise some money for the charity I'm supporting, Rock to Recovery. So I've got them here actually as a little ski Lego man that I'm going to take out with me. So I don't know whether this counts as no longer being solo if he's out with me, my little Lego man.
Someone will argue that. Believe me, that you'll end up in whatever the Antarctic Water Mitties Club is.
yeah, sure. And then, so I'm taking a few things down to use that weight as things I can then sell off afterwards. I'd rather, it's not a huge amount of weight. I've limited it to a few hundred grams, but if I can sell some stuff off and make a few hundred quid for the charity, then it means that at least it's worthwhile instead of me taking random luxuries I'm not going to eat or just go call a pack of fruit pastels or whatever.
You could sell off some genuine, authentic Antarctic ice that you filled up from the tap in Torbay.
No, I fill it up at Heathrow when I land. Yeah, here it is.
Yes, you mentioned Rock to Recovery. They do very solid work, don't they, with veterans who are overcoming challenges?
Yeah, veterans serving personnel and blue light service as well. The main thing, so for me, I think probably about 6 months after I started planning this, I realized it was my way of dealing with lockdowns. I needed a goal. and it was relatively simple for me at the time to do so. I didn't have a family and loads of other commitments. Whereas what Rock to Recovery do is they're proactive and coach people to deal with situations rather than wait until they reach a crisis point and then need intervention from Calm or from Samaritans, people like that. So for me, this is a proactive way of dealing with lockdown, and I thought supporting a charity that do proactive methods of helping other people would be better than supporting a mental health charity that's post crisis.
Yes, good effort. I did a quadruple Ironman once. I think I did that for Rock to Recovery. Yes, very, very valuable work. We'll put friends at home. We'll put a link below for the charity, we'll put all Sam's links below. So if you want to get in and support, that would be brilliant. Communications, because now you can use your mobile in a sat case, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, pretty much. So if I wanted to, and I'm pretty sure this will probably be the way it goes in the next 10 years, is Starlink are now worldwide. So as in Elon Musk's mega network of Wi-Fi, so I could in theory have broadband speed level. It would be 15 kilos of my time and a lot of solar power to generate it, but it's the reason I'm not using it. But then in terms of communications, I'm taking the old school sat phones anyway because I need those for safety. And then ex-Bootneck, Justin is sponsoring me for the communications side. So he's given me like I don't know what you call it, like a small, tiny little router, slower than dial-up speed internet, and that's hugely weather dependent. So whether that's wind or a slight bit of cloud cover will depend whether I can use this. But it means that I can hopefully send back some very, very, very low resolution pictures to at least keep people updated. And then Garmin now have a messaging service. So through my GPS device, I can message an old school style 140 character message back. It takes about 5 minutes to send, takes about 20 minutes to receive, but it means I can send a all okay, please pass my regards on, happy birthday mum, that sort of stuff. So it's not hugely different from probably what it was 10 years ago, but technology is getting a lot better. And like I said, in 10 years time, when we're essentially guiding people to the pole and they're mega rich and they want to continue their office job, I'm pretty sure you'd probably be able to get broadband down there to watch Netflix in the evening, and obviously Sherpas putting up your tent and stuff. So yeah, it's becoming a very small world, but I've tried to sort of keep it a bit more traditionalist for the past 20, 30 years.
Yes, good stuff, Sam. And it's not a subject I really want to talk about, but yeah, emergencies must be a thing in your mind. If you did have to get out of there, how would a plane come and pick you up?
So the company that look after logistics also do the medical side. So they have a full-time doctor in their camp called Union Glacier, which is where I'll fly to first to then set up before I then fly to my start point. And as in the expeditioner, speaks to them daily. That's mainly just to check in, going, I'm fine, this is my location, and normally that's it. But then if I were to have a chest infection or anything like that, is they have a doctor on standby, so I can go, look, I've got these meds in my med bag, so I'm taking antibiotics and a few big pain relief things down with me, so just in case. But it means they can advise you on what you've got in your kit bag to then administer yourself. If they don't hear from you, so if you miss 2 skeds, they come and find you. They give you a GPS device as well as my own and a spare, so hopefully that won't happen. But they'll come to your last known location and come look for you. Again, that's hugely dependent on weather and where you are. There's certain areas where the plane would have to land a bit away from me to then have a team come down and find me if that were the case. But it's few and far between. And like I said, the only real threats, there's no wildlife. I'm hopefully going to skedaddle around all the crevasses. So it would probably either be my own stupidity or the conditions randomly caught me out. So hopefully, touch wood. Have I got any wood? Yeah, touch wood. That won't be necessary to initiate that process.
Exactly. Well, Sam, that leaves me to say is, go and smash it, which we have no doubt you will.
No, cheers, Chris. I really, really appreciate coming on this morning. Thank you for the time. It's been a really enjoyable chat, actually.
Yes. Well, we'll have one when you get back, and also we'll hook up for a Coca-Cola when you get back. That would be great.
You're only about half an hour away from me, so that would be That'd be good.
Yes. Brother, stay on the line so I can thank you properly. But for the purposes of the recording, yes, very proud of you. Oh, just as always, safety first, isn't it? And better to come back and try again than to push your luck. But I'm sure that won't happen.
You tell my mum that.
Yes. Friends at home, hope you've enjoyed this chat as much as I have. If you can like and subscribe, that would be great. And if you'd be kind enough to support our Patreon, it's $1.99 a month, and you get VIP invites to all of my dues for free. We got a bushcraft weekend. Much love.